Hello there, I'm Begalius. And gaming news, I woke up to some gaming news today. Highguard is in the news, if you can believe it. Once again, with news that I don't think is shocking really to anyone, certainly not myself. Yes, it is. It's done. Highguard is over. The party's over and it's stopped mobbing all over the place. There is no more Highguard to be had. I think it's ending towards the end of March, and I think some people will genuinely be disappointed. There were people hanging on to this game, people playing this game, but as is the way at the moment, it's been axed and it's done, which it says a lot. I think, a lot of people are sort of gonna, and I haven't looked at the response to this, but a lot of people are gonna be sort of like, oh yeah, this is great, oh I knew this would happen, Concord 2. A lot of people are gonna look to confirmation bias and say I made a video where I said that it was Concord 2, and now look, I was right, it's Concord 2. Look at this, I was correct about everything. And I think that, like, I don't want to agree with that. Now, I don't think this is another Concord 2. I think people got, or a Concord 2, I think a lot of people got enjoyment from this game. It did things that Concord 2 was unable to do. 93,000 players is nothing to be sniffed at. Unfortunately, I do think this may hold the record for the fastest drop-off of players of all time, at which point we'd be looking at a new benchmark. I think Highguard should be the benchmark for games falling off with players, and just absolutely leaking them like there's a hole in the roof. It's more of an example of that than Concord, which of course Concord just didn't have those players to begin with. But yes, I think it says a lot about the industry on a bigger scale, what's happening, what's going on, and there is a lot to sort of almost retroactively dissect here, pull back trace in terms of the industry itself, because of course, this is happening a lot, and Concord wasn't that long ago. It was 2 years ago, maybe less. I think it was less than 2 years ago. And now we have another case of a game launching and shuttering its doors just a couple of months later. Except in this instance, the big issue with Concord was that they had the entry price, but here that's not even there. It was free to play, and they're still shutting the doors. They still couldn't get enough interest to keep things afloat, which is actually crazy to me, to launch a free-to-play game and not get enough interest to keep the doors open. But at the same time, it kind of isn't. I mean, this is what's going on now. And a lot of people are saying that this is going to lead to a gaming crash. We're going to be looking at a gaming crash. For anyone who doesn't know, that references the gaming crash of, I think it was 1983, when they released E.T., the video game, and it was so bad that it caused the entire market to crash. And I can't remember what brought the market back. But I don't know, just a little fun fact for you there. But we're talking about another potential gaming crash here. And it's easy to think that, and it's not that I don't, but I think that a lot of people are sort of, saying like, oh, well, they're making the wrong decisions. They keep releasing these games when we're telling them not to. And I think a lot of people need to realize that exactly what game development is. It isn't like I decided to make a game and here's my game 6 months later, a year later, unless you're Game Mill, of course. When it comes to game development, these things are taking so damn long. And to this day, I still don't know. I made videos about this. I don't know why they're taking so long, but they really are taking a damn long time. And due to that fact, because they're taking so long, we're actually seeing decisions that have been made a very long time ago. I think back to the Marvel humor in Saints Row, and it's like, okay, Marvel humor in 2022 to release a game that's full to the brim with Marvel humor, or not even that PlayStation exclusive game that came out after that, coated in Marvel humor. I mean, if your dev cycle was like 5 or 6 years, then Marvel humor was at a peak when this game was written, when the dialogue was written. And it's the same for something like Concord, which I think famously had like a 7-year dev cycle or something crazy like that. And it came out in 24. So we're looking at like 2017 when it started development. That was when Overwatch first came out. It was when it hit. And, Guardians of the Galaxy, that style of humor was still, and style of design was still very popular and very prevalent. And of course, they latched on to that because it was a sign of the time. And fast forward to when it released, and no one wanted that. No one cared for that. And it had already been played out. Of course, the issue here, and the big issue when it comes to gaming, and the reason that, I could believe in a gaming crash, is that it's sort of just not conducive. A publisher has to say, like, okay, do I cut ties? Do I, end development for this game, go for the Ubisoft approach and just completely cut the throat of the game? Or Do I, say sunk cost fallacy? I've already sunk like 70, 80 mil into this game, and I need to take a gamble and see if I can recoup these costs. And clearly that's what's happened with Concord and now with Highguard, is they're saying, well, look, I've invested so much damn money into this game, all these investors and what have you, that I have to do it. And then of course you get into the realms of like, if you sought funding and those people who funded the game, they want a product, and they demand a product because they funded it, and you can't just shut the doors without a product if someone else is funding it. All of these different routes. And the issue again comes down to this insanely long dev cycle. Games are just taking so long to make that it's just not working. The whole environment is not working. You pitch something one day, and that thing that you pitched is not going to be popular in 5 or 6 years. That's why the only games that we're seeing that are succeeding, that are doing well, that are selling well, that are awarded, that people love, are single-player games, because single-player games will never die. Like RPGs, people will always love RPGs. People will always love, good adventure games, even though we're not really making good adventure games anymore. It's such a shame. But RPGs, there are so many of them right now because they're a bit of a surefire thing. You know that it's going to succeed. People are never not going to like a good RPG that you can sink your teeth into and get lost in. When it comes to a trend-chasing online shooter or online whatever, you have to go with the trend, and that will constantly change, which was okay when our dev cycle was like a year and a half. But now when we're looking at like 7-8 year long dev cycles, at some point it's just going to be like, well, people don't want this anymore, this thing that we pitched all these years ago. And you pitch something based on what people want. That's why Marvel films always used to get made, because they were surefire, $1 billion endeavors. And that's why, because it was a surefire thing. It was what people wanted. It was what the focus group said that people wanted to see. And, when your dev cycle is so long, you can't really adhere to that. So either you get lucky and somehow your game manages to stand apart from others. I don't know how. Look at stuff like Delta Force. I don't know how Delta Force is as popular as it is, but it is. It has over 100,000 players on average every day. No idea why, but it just does. Apparently it's big in China. Or like Crossfire back in the day. Games like that where it's like, I don't know why it's so popular. And I know people love it. I know people think it's a great game. I personally haven't played it, and I'm sure it is excellent if so many people think it is. But a game like Arc Raiders, how did that stand out in a world of extraction shooters when it doesn't, from what I can tell, doesn't really do anything that any other extraction shooter doesn't do? I don't know, maybe it does, but at the same time, I, the casual observer, don't know what that thing is. And so you ask yourself, like, well, how did that get popular? But games like, I don't want to say Marathon because Marathon has its issues, but other extraction shooters just aren't catching hold. Well, you just kind of get lucky, you get good advertising. Or something external happens, you get the Barbenheimer effect or something like that. And that can't happen for everyone. And you can't run an entire industry on the expectation that something like that could happen. And so I think like a lot of people are going to be looking at the risk of investing, because gaming is just one big investing game. Who can I get to fund my project? People will be looking at the risk of that and saying, I'm just not sure that I should be investing in this. Whereas gaming was a lot healthier when a lot of these investments were happening previously. I think like it's so hit or miss at the moment that, a lot of people just aren't going to want to do that. So we'll see what happens. I'm really not sure, but I could see a potential gaming crash happening. Not thanks to Highguard, but I think that Highguard will be indicative of why it happened. Let's just say that. So rest in peace, Highguard. Wasn't a game for me. I didn't really enjoy it. A little bit too fiddly, muddly. Didn't really know what I was doing. And it kind of wasted my time a lot. I mean, I did put a review up of where essentially I just said that, like, I felt like one big waste of time and it didn't respect my time. And that's an issue. Yeah, the game is bad. So, I'm not saying that it deserves to be shut down, but I'm not too bothered that it is. It's not on my hard drive. Not really fussed. Anyway, that was Highguard. Rest in peace. Hopefully it doesn't affect one of your favorite games, and I will see everyone later.
The PlayStation is only $149, and you can also get leading titles.